All right, here we are back at SUB-CLE. Okay, so last SUB-CLE, we had Chris Dora, and we started talking about somebody. This somebody is Noah, and Noah is here joining me right now.
Hey,
welcome to SUB-CLE. I heard that, so you're going to be going out on a tour, next week?
Next week, yeah.
Man, tell me about that.
So I play guitar in a band called Nunslaughter.
Yeah.
And my handle is Tormentor.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's the name. So we're leaving Sunday. Gone for a week and a half or so. Just a quick little 10-show tour, trying to make up for lost time with the COVID thing, and lost a bunch of touring because of the last 2 years of misery.
Right.
So here we are. It's just, short headlining tour with a band called the Black Mariah from, I think they're from Texas.
Okay.
And we'll just do a big loop from Knoxville or Cleveland, Knoxville, Mississippi, and then a bunch of shows in Texas and big old loop back up. So
okay,
yeah.
Did I see that you're doing like European things or no?
We do, yeah. I think most of August will be in Europe.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's already planned and everything.
And that's we're hoping everything works out the way it's planned right now,
right?
Because everything's been so screwy.
Well, we're in war mode now.
Yes.
Pandemic's over,
yes.
and it's World War III.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going into. So you might be going into some. You might have to battle.
Man. I'm going to stick to the western end and the northern end, But Scandinavia, we're supposed to do Scandinavia, which I've never done. I've done like a show in Denmark, but that's not really where we were at. Really isn't considered Scandinavia, I guess. So we're doing a bunch of Germany shows. Every time you go to Europe to do a tour, you have a bunch of shows in Germany because Germany is a rich country, and it helps pay for everything else. And then you got to do at least a couple of big fest shows because the fest shows pay like double of what the other shows. So it makes it feasible to fly and all the transportation.
Cool.
So.
I kind of figured the fest shows would have been a pay-to-play kind of thing.
No, I mean, maybe if you suck.
Right, yeah. Right. Well, so let's go into Nunslaughter because we kind of were talking about, obviously Kanye comes up.
Absolutely.
Every time I talk to a band, somebody in a band in Cleveland. And so tell me about Nunslaughter.
Okay, well, I could tell you my part in Nunslaughter.
Okay.
So, I was running a studio in Lakewood, Ohio for 4 or 5 years. I was down in that region. And had picked up a couple of clients along the way. I wasn't really doing it full time. I was kind of doing like mostly on my days off type of stuff. But I had enough cash to afford a little spot, like my own spot. So, recording bands and stuff. Met Jim years before, working down. I had a little spot at Rock and Roll City, just like everybody else did. Yeah, Jim Kanye.
Rock and Roll City Studios, and Mark Soberet.
Yes,
that name comes up. Yeah.
So he would always, Jim would always come down to our room in my old band, and we'd be practicing, and he always come in, throw up some horns and fucking headbang for a second. Fucking great, best bell band in Cleveland, say something like that, and then so I started recording some Schnauzer stuff, and then he's like, hey, come over, check out these Nunslaughter songs. And I was like, well, I know who Nunslaughter is because I'm in Cleveland.
Yeah, right.
And I listened to a lot of the stuff before. So I ended up getting a couple of Nunslaughter songs to record. They came down, did them there. And then as I moved, after I left Rock and Roll City, got thrown out, went down, found a spot in Lakewood. And turns out Don lived in Lakewood, literally right around the corner from my studio. Don of the Dead, who's the singer of Nunslaughter.
Okay.
So he, they started doing everything with me, all the recording. 2013, we were doing an album called Angelic Dread, which is a double LP. The first LP is all original, new stuff, and then the second LP was like re-recordings of like really hard to find 7 inches and things other songs that had come out that were cool, but nobody had really heard. And this is, even 2013. This is before streaming services were a real thing,
right?
They were.
It's hard to believe that wasn't that long ago, but it seems like a totally different world now.
It is, yeah. So I was recording the band. Their guitar player at the time, not even gonna mention his name, but he was in the band. Left kind of unexpectedly.
Yeah.
We were right at the end of recording the record. literally right at the end, and he just kind of bailed.
Yeah.
So when he bailed, tour was already booked for Europe for the following year, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" So one time, my old band Solipsist, we played a show at the Hewlett, which is now the Fun House. It was a Spitfire back then, but we did it. We did a gig there, and I looked at the back of the room.
Well, wasn't it only the Hewlett for like a week?
January.
A month or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So we had our annual show.
Yeah.
That we did there, and I remember just like looking in the back of the room and seeing Jim and Don sitting in the back of the room. And I'm like, what the fuck are they doing here? Like, they don't like this band, We're not old school death metal,
Right.
So I ended up talking to them. They're like, oh, we just want to see how you are on stage.
Right.
Like, okay, I can see where this is going. So a couple of days goes by. They came down to the studio, asked me, hey, will you play guitar on this Nunslaughter tour? It wasn't, will you join Nunslaughter?
Yeah.
It was, will you play on this tour? All expenses are paid. You get paid $50 a day or something, and you get to have some fun. So we ended up going over there with them, did a 17 show tour, and then came home. A couple weeks later, they asked me, hey, you want to be in the band full time? I said, why not? I already know all the songs, right?
Yeah.
So joined the band then, and then we did a handful of gigs after that. We did like some New York shows, and we kind of did we did Danny Loker's 50th birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we did that, like a couple of really cool gigs, and then
if anyone doesn't know it, that's Nuclear Assault.
Yes,
yeah.
So we did that, did a couple gigs, and then Don decided he wanted to take some time off from the band and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think everything was just a little too chaotic at the time, and maybe he just needed a break.
Yeah.
In that year break, we lost Jim.
Right.
So fast forward a year, one day I get a phone call from Don. Said, hey, do you want to do Nunslaughter? I said, absolutely. He said, all right, well, we need a drummer.
Yeah.
So I was tasked with finding a drummer.
Well, you know enough people.
Yeah. So I found a drummer. So right then it was me, Andrew Murphy, Joe Lowry, who's Wrath in the band, and Don, was not living in Cleveland at the time. So I was Cleveland band dad for a while.
Okay.
Making sure everything went.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Play the songs every week. Write some stuff.
Right.
Doing demos, sending them to Don. He's going to a studio where he lived, recording them, the vocals, sending them back.
Right.
Putting stuff out. Still going. And then we managed to just keep basically fucking pulling this thing along, and here we are. So
that's awesome. So I mean, Nunslaughter is like a, if you're in the Cleveland metal scene, I mean, I've always equated it with Kanye, but Chris Dora was telling me that it's obviously
it's Don's band.
Yeah. And so I was like, as I was going on, and obviously Andrew Murphy was on here. He plays. He was on this podcast talking, and but so like I really want to know like so. I mean, obviously, I known you from recording things. You were running sound at Peabody's, stuff like that. Let's start back at the beginning.
Oh,
let's go.
It's a long story.
Yeah, right. Well, we got plenty of time. How'd you get into me? Whatever. How'd you get into music? What was your first instrument? What was your first expressive thing or something that you had a desire to do?
Okay. Well, it started with being a kid in a Mormon family.
Mormon, really?
Yes, raised in a Mormon household.
Are you still Mormon? Or?
No. I play guitar in a death metal band called Nunslaughter. So I raised in a really religious family. Music was everywhere.
Yeah.
But before my dad especially became a devout Mormon.
So he transitioned into it.
No, he was born in the church.
Okay.
And then went away from it for a while.
Okay.
And he played music professionally for a long time.
Oh, nice.
And 6 nights a week, 2 gigs a night, between Vegas, LA.
What kind of music?
Country western music.
Oh, nice.
This is the 1960s. So
okay, that's cool though.
So he did that for a long time, and he had a recording studio. So when I was born, we had a little studio in the back of the house. It used to be basically a barn, and he turned it into a little studio. And he would do demos, a little 4-track studio.
Where was this at?
In Boise.
Boise, okay. So you're not a Cleveland native?
Not native. Well, I mean, I consider myself.
Right, yeah.
So
You get out of here.
Yeah, right. I was always around music, though. I mean, it was everywhere. I was always in the house. My sisters are all very good singers. My dad's a good singer. My mom never really did much music, but her dad could play anything.
Sure.
It was just sort of everywhere all the time, and learning how to sing. And then when I got into... We moved all over the place. Obviously, here I am. But we moved all over the place. Ended up in Indiana for a while, and the lady next door, this little, like, kind of... question mark looking, bent over, white haired old lady. She was a piano teacher.
Yeah.
And so my mom's like, oh, they're living on Social Security. They could use whatever income they got. I got a kid that can play. I could twinkle the keys a little bit. And they're like, send him to lessons. Yeah. And my best friend at the time, his mom was our elementary school music teacher. Okay. And I would go over to their house on the weekends, play Tecmo Bowl, and listen to Led Zeppelin records. Yeah. And I discovered rock and roll with that. Really fantastic people, and she died a number of years ago. But
I'm sorry.
But really fantastic people. They understood that I'm in a Mormon family, and they understood that the rules were being broken. But they let it happen, and I'm eternally grateful for that. Anyway, fast forwarding, whatever. Ended up in Ohio, about 7th grade.
Okay. And so at a young age.
Pretty young. Ended up here, met some people here in Ohio and in Avon, which was where I went to high school. And met some really great folks that I'm still friends with today. And picked up a guitar and was like, this is cool. I wanted a drum set first. My older brother was in a punk rock band that practiced in our basement. So there was a drum set there. There's amps. And I live in the house, so when nobody's home, I go down there and jam around and start playing on the drums or play the bass, play guitar. Somebody come in and be like, "Was that you?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You can play." I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just making this up, Right? Yeah. So I had some natural ability.
Nice. That's
which
cool.
was which is fortunate, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it that much when I was younger.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I'm like, I know people that don't know anything.
Right.
And they never will. Right.
Right.
So I had something there, and I nourished it. Learned how, playing punk rock songs.
Yeah.
I loved punk rock. I shared a bedroom. We never had a whole lot of money. There's a lot of kids in my family. Shared a bedroom until
obviously Mormon.
Right. I shared a bedroom with
How many siblings did you have?
7.
7. Wow. Yes. That's cool.
I'm the youngest. So I shared a bedroom with my brother till I was 15.
Yeah.
And listened to everything he listened to. Right. So we had a big ass stereo down there, and he listened to Sonic Youth and Black Flag, Dead Kennedys.
Okay, all that.
All that, and then later on, getting into metal. I got into Slayer and stuff. Sure. So whatever he was listening to, I listened to, and then by default, I started to like it.
Right.
And get into weird punk rock, and still at heart, I'm a punk kid.
Sure. I've always said that about myself too.
Yeah, and then get into you start getting into hardcore music or like you're supposed to like New York hardcore music, and then Bay Area thrash metal, and then that becomes fucking Florida death metal, and then before you know it, you're death metal kid, right? So
it's funny, that was basically an outline of what Dora and I talked about. On the last one, because death metal was Florida. You had your thrash in the Bay Area. And Cleveland has its own thing. Really, I mean,
it's Clevo-core, man. It's a different thing. It has its own sound.
Yeah,
and it's probably started in the '90s, and it's still there. It's still here.
Yeah. So, what was like the first? So you got a band together, right? When you were kids, what was that?
Mr. Wang.
Mr. Wang.
Yeah, because there was a mailbox on the way down. If we were driving down the street, it said Wang on it. And we always thought that was really funny. Like, who the hell's called Mr. Wang, right? So I started a band with my best friend Dave. People know him as Fat Dave, Dave Vesdas. We've been in bands together our whole lives. We started a band in high school when we were like 14, 13, called Mr. Wang. And then that became, it was just me and him and a couple kids from school. And then that kind of transitioned into another band called The Hit Squad, and we did that for like 5 years. That was actually a pretty good band. Really, looking back, I'm like, for being 16, we were pretty fucking good. Yeah. We had good songs, and the recordings were bad, but like, who cares?
Right. How'd you record those? What
I recorded them on a 4-track in my basement.
Okay.
When I was 15.
Like a Foss Tech.
Tascam or something. Maybe it might have been a Yamaha. I might have been real fancy. Because my dad saw that I took a little bit of interest in it, and he's like, "Hey, he still was writing songs too. So he still writes songs today. So, putting that all together, and I looking back, I'm like, yeah, he let me use it.
Right.
That's all he was. He didn't buy it from me. He was letting me use it and saying, don't break it. Because I had 2 SM57s, 2 cables, and a 4-track.
Oh, that's all you need, really.
You can record a whole band with that.
Yeah.
So we did that a bunch. Made a couple demos / whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And ended up putting them out. And I still have one somewhere. And made a couple good friends along the way and a couple enemies. You know how it goes. And a couple of the guys in the band were St. Ed's kids because they went to Catholic school growing up.
Okay. Lakewood always has to get in the mix here.
Right. So you got the St. Ed's kids and and all that. And then, after that, after we graduated high school, that whole thing just kind of fizzled out.
Right.
Me and Fat Dave were like, hey, let's start a metal band.
Yeah.
So we started a band with 2 other guys that we met in... They were from Sheffield, I think. Yeah, Sheffield Lake.
Okay.
This dude, Donnie and Alex, and we met them, and they liked some of the same stuff we did.
Right.
Real percussive death metal, just like where I don't care about what notes are going on. I just want it to sound cool. And so we started a band called Amentia, and we did that from 01 to 06.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, we did a lot of cool stuff. I see you have the Ghoul there on your wall.
Yeah.
We played at Goulardi's a lot.
Okay.
Because we were from out that way, Lorain County.
Right.
Played Goulardi's a bunch. Opened up for Crypt Kicker and NDE and Mushroom Head and all those bands for years at the Flying Machine and going on. We did that for a long time. We had a lot of fun with it, and then eventually I think everybody just kind of got tired of it.
Right.
And then. More time goes by. I don't know, the year went by or something, and at that band Amentia, when we were doing that band, we were doing gigs with a band called Belligerent.
Right.
And obviously, Belligerent guys.
Yeah.
Steve Cinco, Dave Shinaki.
Yeah.
At the time, Andrew Murphy. Zach Mowry. We call him Rick. So if you ever hear me say Rick, I'm talking about Zach.
Right.
But they were doing that band. We had been playing shows together, and I guess secretly behind the scenes, and I was singing in Amentia. And behind the scenes, when we were playing shows together, those guys were like watching us, like, we want that guy in our band. Yeah. So they courted me a little bit. That's what happened. They they kind of tricked me.
Well, I think we skipped something because so you were singing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what got you in you just because I know that I played in a band and we just couldn't find a singer. So by default, I was a singer.
Yep.
Yeah. But is that did you say, hey, I want to be a singer or whatever? I don't know. Or did you start on guitar?
Well, when I was doing the punk bands, I was singing and playing guitar.
Okay.
Because it's 4-chord riffs. It's not hard to play.
But if anyone knows you, your voice is not very punky.
No.
Were you doing?
But I was also 16.
Okay,
it was
all right.
punky back then.
Okay.
I was like, liar.
Because you pretty much sound like the devil now.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
That's a compliment. I like how you said thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I played in punk bands and singing in punk bands and stuff. And then, when we got out of that, the guy that was playing guitar in the band that we were putting together was way better than me at guitar.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to play this stuff and sing it the way that I wanted to sing it. And I hadn't really ever done any quote unquote brutal vocals before in my life.
Right.
It just happened. I just picked up the mic and that's what came out.
Well, you have a deep voice, so
I can sing.
Yeah.
I can hold a note. I was in a state boys choir for years as a kid, and they thought I had perfect pitch, but they were wrong. It's almost, but
I was going to say, I think you got a good ear.
That's also a skill that you have to practice. People I'm born with perfect pitch. I'm like, no, you're not. You have to practice that.
Right.
But anyway, I just learned it. I just learned how to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
I never took a lesson in vocals or anything. I just learned how to do brutal vocals and scream top my lungs.
Okay.
And make it sound cool without hurting myself.
So how did they know that you were playing in a band where you were doing that? Is that why?
They tried me out.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I said, hey, if you want a bass player, this is a package deal. So me and Dave were a package deal.
Oh, I got you.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
They took it.
So they heard you sing?
Yeah, in the basement.
Okay, just not like live. They, whatever. Yeah,
no,
okay, I got you.
Just doing like we had a really shitty old I think it was a bass amp.
Yeah.
Or something. Then we had a converter for the XLR into the quarter inch. And we just plugged that son of a bitch in and started screaming. And they were like, holy shit, that sounds great.
Yeah.
It probably didn't sound great, but compared to what they were dealing with, it probably was pretty good.
So then you're a singer.
I guess so.
Yeah. And then, but you played guitar before that. So you've always been a guitar player. I mean,
since I was like 12.
So, there's, I always say like there's this expressive nature to everything, where you have to express yourself in some way. What is your tool for expression? Like, what do you find like to be like what you because I've always said like, you have to do it. There's got to be a release in some way, What is your release? What makes you feel the most comfortable?
Probably writing songs.
Yeah.
And I probably have hundreds of songs that I've written, but nobody's ever heard. Because that's not what I get off on. I don't get off on, and I don't mean like sexually, but
right.
I don't get off on the people listening to the songs.
Right.
That never really did anything for me.
Right.
I honestly, I would rather like my best friend hear a song and like it than a million people.
Yeah.
It means more to me. Part of it, I guess part of the answer is it comes out from the recording side.
Right.
Being able to just lay it down and listen back.
Right.
And kind of, I guess, I've always felt like there's something wrong with me. My whole life. I'm serious. I've always felt like there's something wrong with me because I don't. Sometimes I have a hard time relating with people.
Right.
Some people would say that I'm selfish, or I'm a control freak, or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. I think it was always more. I have a hard time empathizing with people, and so when I feel more human, I guess, when I can write a song that I can express my emotions in a way that maybe I've always been afraid to before.
Yeah.
So like I come from a family of reactionary people.
Right.
Where saying the wrong thing could get you chastised.
Right.
All words are thoughts. So if I'm not allowed to say it, that means I'm not allowed to think it.
Right.
And so my release as a kid was writing songs that I knew would get me in trouble. Right. So, and then it made me feel good. Yeah. That made me feel good. I'm like, well, nothing has ever made me feel like this before. So I'm going to keep doing this. And to this day, I still write a lot. I write a lot of music. Most of it's not very good, but some of it's really good. And, you're not going to fucking hit a home run every time, right?
Right.
So, but that's sort of that's how I get my sense of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's not so much about the singing or the guitar or the bass or drums or whatever I'm playing that day.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's the expression, the emotion, getting something out inside of me that I don't know how to get out any other way. And so I don't worry about the technicality of it. I don't worry about how many notes I'm playing. I don't worry about it. I have songs I've written with 3 fucking notes.
Right.
And they're great. Yeah. In my opinion, you might think it sucks, but that doesn't really matter to me. I didn't do it for you.
It's the process. It's the process that...
Yep.
Yeah,
it
that's
is the
what
process.
I've always said.
I like the process, and I like to listen. I like to listen to my own shit.
Right.
And people are like, "Why would you listen to your shit?" I'm like, "Because it's fucking good. Because I think it's good. Like, why would I sit here and lie to you? I'm not going to lie to you and be like, "Well, it's because I'm checking my mix." No, it's not. Because I like the song.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that somebody else maybe would like it, or maybe get something out of it, but that's not my number one.
Right.
You know?
Well, no, yeah. And I've always, I've always said for myself, it's just, man, it's hearing you say that, I resonate with it. Like, it resonates in me because, I've always said it's the process. It's not about what's going on. It's just doing it, yes. And that was, dude. Yeah, I really identify with that. But so when you started singing, was that like? So you were doing the punk rock thing, and then you went into the more brutal thing. Mm-hmm. Where were you getting that kind of, like, what was your inspiration for that? Because I mean you definitely, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I mean, I'm not trying to, like, because you're sitting in front of me. I mean, you're probably one of the better death metal vocalists I've ever heard.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, seriously. And I know a few people that would agree with me in my inner circle. So, like, where do you draw your inspiration for that?
Probably my biggest, like, vocals. Probably Chuck Billy.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a huge Testament fan.
I love Testament, and when Low, I remember when Low hit my ears for the first time.
That was the first time he was doing the real Low
the gutturals, right?
Yeah,
and then he started. Then Demonic came out.
Yeah,
which today is still, like, in my top 5.
Yeah.
I love that record. I love the way.
Dude, why are we not best friends, dude? You are saying everything I want to hear.
It's such a good album. So that voice, like the bellowing, like that fucking bellowing sound. I was like, I want to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then also, like, when Chuck's not doing that, when he's doing the classic Chuck voice, he's got that, the real fucking nasally, like he's kind of squeezing everything in there to get to those high spots.
Right.
I learned how to do that listening to Testament records.
That's awesome.
So, a lot of the vocals that I did in Amentia, like the one in that band, were directly a result of listening to Testament.
That's awesome, dude.
And then, obviously there's other stuff, but I've never considered myself like a quote unquote death metal vocalist, because I always felt like I could do way more than that.
Sure.
But I feel like, when you're writing songs with a bunch of guys, people sort of expect you to do something, and you're sort of expected to do things a certain way, or you need to fit in to a spot. If you try to go too far outside of that, everything gets fucky. And that's actually, I've been guilty of it more times than not. Trying to go too far.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're fucking Devin Townsend, you can go too far every time and it's going to be great. Right. But I'm not Devin Townsend, right? So
not many people are, yeah.
Right. So there's no genius in this house sitting here right now, right?
Well, some people would beg to differ.
Well, so I tend to think that I never thought of it that way. I guess I never thought of it as like death metal. I always thought of it as aggression,
right?
The rawest emotion, anger, sadness, despair,
right?
Doing a low, brutal, fucking long, bellowing note.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be angry. That could be, I've lost everything.
Right.
Right. I mean, it could be both of those things. Right. So. When we did Solipsist, we haven't really talked about that yet, but we will, I imagine. But when we were doing that band we did that band for 12 or 13 years, and more of those songs are sad than angry.
Okay.
So a lot of it was on loss. I've got a pretty tumultuous life.
Yeah.
I've lived.
Yeah.
It hasn't been smooth sailing.
Well, yeah.
So a lot of where that came from was just loss after loss. You know what I mean?
They say that a lot of. That's very Nietzschean, really, because you've went through that extreme torment, whatever. At your level, everything's whatever. Regardless of what it is, it was important to you, and it impacted you. But you came out the other end, and as Nietzsche would say, like an Ubermensch, Superman. You know what I mean?
A little bit, yeah.
So
you're only as I mean, and I tend to agree with that, because. You fucking get shit on and shit on and shit on, and all these bad things happen in your life, and it's like either you crumble,
right,
or you don't,
right.
And so, well, I didn't.
Yeah, right.
I probably came pretty close a couple times, but you know, so just a little background on me, and I don't really talk about this to too many people. So saying this on a podcast is probably a little outside my character. Maybe the whiskeys help. But I've lost a lot of siblings in my life. I've lost 2 siblings to suicide.
Oh wow, really?
And others to horrible accidents.
No kidding.
So which were usually brought on by alcohol or drug use.
Oh boy.
And some of that maybe is the Mormon guilt thing.
I was going to ask that.
So I think it's all tied in together, and so I've come damn close to losing another one recently.
Really?
So, you know, this is something like I said, I don't talk about too much, but it has shaped everything I've done.
Sure.
You know, the sorrow and loss of losing a sibling. The only thing I could probably think is worse is like losing a son or daughter.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
You know, so like my poor folks have been through hell, and I don't know how they're still kicking it, honestly. Sometimes I wonder how they're even still doing it. My dad's 82 years old.
So is he still like practicing Mormon and everything? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, but he's a good man. He is a good man.
Sure. Well, you would have to be.
He did his best.
Yeah, I think a lot of like religious people, I mean, they mean well. I mean, you know, and I think they're doing what they think is righteous and good, you know. It just seems like I don't know, you know, because I was raised Catholic, and I mean, dude,
it's a different type of guilt.
Yeah, right. You know, but it's crazy because I mean, I could draw a lot of parallels with you. I mean, I only had a sister, and I recently lost her. You know,
I'm sorry.
You know, but yeah, it's like, but you know. I think being raised, you know, because I was pretty much a devout Catholic up until I was about 22, I think.
Oh, wow. You made it way further than I did.
Yeah. You know, no, and I did, you know, and all my friends are telling me, you know, hey, you know, that's so silly. Like, what the fuck, you know? But you know, I came out the other end, and like I was like kind of like had a lot of anxiety and depression and stuff like that. But as soon as I like kind of like opened my mind a little bit, and I mean, you know, hallucinogens may have helped. I don't know what, you know, whatever,
that's
you know,
spirituality too.
Right. But you know, once I came out the other end, and with music, it was a great thing that, you know, it just being in the community with music and stuff like that, and expressing yourself in certain ways, a lot of the ways that you said too. Sure. It really grounded me. It opened my eyes, and it's like I don't want to die, but I'm not really that much afraid of death anymore. Sure. But I want to be happy. Yeah. Like, I don't want to like be angry. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't harbor a lot of those feelings. And I feel that from you too. I mean, you feel like a genuinely good person.
I do try.
You know? So, okay. So you were, where were we with you?
Dementia and the solipsist, which was the big one. That's the big one. Yeah. That was the life changer.
Yeah. So you just sang with Solipsist. Mm-hmm. Did you have anything to do with the writing? I mean, Absolutely. I know those guys. Oh, yeah. Oh, did you? Okay, because sure. I know Steve and like those guys.
Oh man, and they're still honestly. Okay, I'm just gonna say this before I say anything about Solipsist.
Yeah.
Those guys are my best friends in the world.
Yeah.
Today. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for those guys.
Nice.
They were unbelievably supportive and helpful friends. Fantastic group of guys. Right. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have met Steve Cinco, Dave Shinaki, even Andrew Murphy. I know you're listening. Extremely fortunate to meet those guys and to have the relationships that we have. Yeah. And to this day. And you may grow apart. You may end up doing different things in your life. Right. But when you get together, it's like nothing ever happened. And so, you know, it actually started off, you know, we were at they were at Rock and Roll City, room 308. Right in the middle of the building. And Steve called me on the phone one day and said, hey, we got this band. We had been hanging out a little bit, you know, going back and forth. Yeah. They had just fired their singer, and or whatever, kicked him out of the band, which
Right.
I think for Steve was really hard because it was his best friend. And he said, we're recording, we got this thing. We know you. So at the time I had this little laptop and I had a Motu interface with eight inputs on it. And they were like, hey, can you come down to our spot and record our demos?
Yeah.
Well, really what that was a secret ploy to get me down there to hear the songs and stuff. Yeah. But I had met Zach, the guitar player, at a Hatebreed show at Peabody's, actually. And I was there by myself, and he was there by himself, and we ran into each other at the bar.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, do you smoke pot? And I said, yes. And he says, well, if you ever need any, like, hit me up. I always have some extra. We started talking about Hatebreed and stuff. And it's like, and then one day I went down there, and he had, I called him on the phone. I was like, hey, you got any weed? I can't find any weed. He's like, yeah, dude, man, come on down. I'm at this place called Rock and Roll City.
Yeah.
So I went down there, and, this is all before, but met those guys, and I saw, they had a couple songs they were playing that they had written after they had got rid of their singer, and they started playing the tunes, and I was like, this is really good. I was like, holy shit, these songs are great. Like, watching the drummer blast beats, and everything's, like, tight and on point. And I'm like, wow, I've never been in a band this good. Like, this is crazy.
They're good, yeah.
And they needed a singer.
Yeah.
So I ended up recording, 3-4 songs or something, and then right there at Rock and Roll City. And then they were like, hey, will you sing on the songs? And I'm like, well, here, I'm already this deep in. Yeah. So I might as well. So we actually recorded the vocals in Murph's bedroom.
Okay.
On Clifton in Cleveland, just on the other side of West 117th there, in a place they had a house called the Metal Mansion. Okay. Which I'm sure you've heard of.
They've referenced that. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of dudes living in a place. Yeah. Throwing beer bottles through the walls, like just absolute chaos. So I went over there. We did the vocals there. I brought my whole computer over and everything. It was nice. Crazy. It was crazy. And then we ended up putting out the demo, and then we came up. We landed on the name Solipsist, and
which means what? I mean, I know what it means, but
it's someone who well, it's the concept, I guess, that one could be the only thing that really exists. Right. Like, I am the only thing that I can prove is real. Right. You could just be in my head. Like, I could be dreaming right now. Correct. So that's the concept. So solipsism. Yes, would be that concept, and the person, the individual, the everything. Right. Right. The everything would be the solipsist. Right. So you're literally everything. Which is beautiful. Right. And if you really think about it. I just stole it from Henry Rollins' book, Solipsist. Like, I thought the book was great. So I was like, hey, that's a really good name for a band. We ended up going with it. It turned out that it actually wasn't a really good name for a band. And I'll go into that later. Oh, okay. So anyway, we started that band. We put out a demo. Killer demo. Still to this day, I get people comment on it. Like, man, that demo was great. I'm like, we did it with no preamps.
Dude, it's a really good... dude, everything about I love Solipsis, but no preamps. Well,
we had no pre's. We just did it with bullshit. It was like the fucking worst preamps you could buy.
And hopefully, we're gonna get into the whole production part of everything, because that's how I know you.
That's a big part of the story.
That's how a lot of people talk about you. Your name has come up quite a few times. Mm-hmm. You've recorded some people around here,
but quite a lot.
But the Solipsist. Go ahead and tell me why it wasn't a good idea.
Well, the band, the name, you mean? Yeah. That's later in the story.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay, so we started the band. We were doing some cool stuff. Steve and Dave and Zach and Murph were writing all the music, and I just came in as the singer to these songs that were already written. Yeah. And they turned out pretty good. I thought they were good. I still think they're good songs.
They're great.
So we did that for a while, and then we ended up writing some more songs. And I like to write songs, so I picked up a guitar, wrote a couple tunes. We ended up putting it all together. We ended up with a 6-song EP. We went to Cole Martinez when he was running a studio in North Olmsted called Conquistador Studios. Okay. So we went over there, recorded 6 tunes. I think this was October 2006. And we ended up putting the songs out early 2007. Songs get released, put them out ourselves, did everything ourselves. We wanted to be DIY, like super DIY. Right. And we had a bunch of songs, and we did all our own artwork. So basically...
Well, who did the artwork?
So that's another part of the story.
Okay.
So while we were recording the EP for the first like, okay, we're going to a studio to record this, release. When we did that, I think Murph was maybe in a different place in his head. I don't want to speak for him.
Sure.
I love the guy. So, it just wasn't working. So, Steve, you got to realize too, like Steve had just kicked his best friend out of his band like a year before.
You're talking about Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he kicked kicking Murph out's like not a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. To me, I felt way more like on the outside of the situation because I hadn't known Murph my whole life.
Yeah.
Like those guys had, or not nearly as long. And so to me, it wasn't that big of a deal because my best friend is a bass player.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and there was never any like, and I don't want people to get the or anybody to get the idea that this was like a planned thing because it never was.
Right.
It was this isn't working. We're going to try something else. So Dave, my best friend Dave, was like finishing up college at Bowling Green. He had a 4-year degree, and he was finishing up school, and he was getting ready to come home. And I said, "Hey, I got this band. Need a bass player." He's like, "Sign me up. Anything you're doing, I'll do."
Yeah.
So he joined the band right after. Well, he just got a 4-year degree in digital art.
Nice. So there it is.
So that's all the artwork we ever had except for one piece was Dave. Except for The Human Equation. That album we paid for that piece of art.
Okay.
But we did all our own layouts. We recorded everything ourselves, literally front to back. Everything.
Why did you decide to pay for that?
That album art? Because we thought it looked cool.
Okay. So you just saw it? And
we saw it. It's for sale online, and we were like, hey, that's cool. Guy wants like $200. I mean, let's do it.
Right.
So we did that, and it was, looking back, maybe that wasn't the right decision, but it doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
So we ended up, Dave was joined the band. We did the artwork. Actually, the artwork for the album is called Medicate the Masses.
Okay.
And the artwork is our friend Chase up against the white wall in my living room, because me and Steve had an apartment at the time. We wrapped him in saran wrap. Shined a light on him and made him I'm dying. And that's the album art. And then on the back, there's two hands, like they're catching water almost.
Yeah.
Open hands. Those are Steve's hands on the back.
Okay.
Everything we did was DIY.
Nice.
And I'm really proud of that because it nowadays that's not uncommon, but in 2006 or 2007, that wasn't common. People didn't have access to some of the resources that we have now,
right,
as far as art and sound and all the graphic design stuff. Like, sure, everybody knows Photoshop now. In 2006, like, most people that knew Photoshop had a degree in it.
Right.
So, we recorded that album at a studio, and that was the last recording that we ever did outside of our room.
Okay.
So, and not knocking on Cole or anything, but we just got to the point where, like, why are we paying for this? We could just do it ourselves. Sure. And I still think Cole's a really good engineer, by the way. So, we made a bunch of records. We were a band for 12 years. Had a fantastic time. We had some really cool opportunities that we probably didn't seize. And I think a little bit was, generally speaking, as a group, we probably felt a little entitled. Right. And we wanted to be the biggest metal band in the world. But we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Well, you had potential.
Yeah, we had potential.
For sure.
We had a record label. So we here's the name thing. So we played a show. It was really probably the last quarter of the band there, the last 3 or 4 years. I was working at Peabody's at the time, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I was working at Peabody's and knew a bunch of people there. And there was a Battle for Mayhem Fest thing that they were doing. They were like, hey, you can, if you win this Battle of the Bands, you can play Mayhem Fest like right after Anthrax. Yeah. So we're like, yeah, let's get on it, because we're going to win, right? Yeah. I mean, we were a fucking freight train at the time. We were unstoppable. Live band. I mean, we were very good.
When I met Steve and Dave and all those guys, like, I was trying to do music too, but I had like a little teeny studio and they were like recording stuff. And dude, I was envious, man. Like, I'm listening to them write those songs, and I'm like, man, why I was envious, really.
Talented guys.
Yeah.
Like nobody in that band was like super proficient at their at their instrument, like drums or guitar or bass. Like nobody was like, I can shred, I can rip. No, it didn't matter. It was together.
Yeah.
It was very, very tight.
And actually, I'd like to say that my friend Billy, I don't know if you know Billy,
I do, yes,
bass player Billy, he's the one that connected me with those guys. And he was like, dude, these kids are really good, and that he was like, they just need a recording. They need something, whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did that for a long, long time, but we did this Battle for Mayhem Fest thing, and obviously we won. So we went up there, we I hate Battle of the Bands because it's a competition, and bands shouldn't be competing with each other, right? We should be trying to help each other out.
Sure.
And so we, we get up there. They put us on last because, well, two of us work there, and that like we got accused of the club got accused of sandbagging other bands,
Peabody's,
really? railroading bands to make us look better. Because we had a light show.
Is that true?
Well, no, it's not. Actually, we were a really good band. It
doesn't seem like it would be.
We played there often. If you play somewhere often, the sound guys know you.
Right.
The light guy knows you.
Yeah.
When I'm writing out notes for the LD to do like blackouts between songs and certain light colors and things to do during the songs, of course I'm going to look better than the next band.
Sure.
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
So we won, but the guy who was the rep from Sumerian, I think it was Sumerian Records at the time, which was like all the hype, rage hype label.
Yeah.
Takes us out back the patio at Peabody's on East 21st and says, "We'll sign you. You got to change your name."
Really? Why?
Yeah. They didn't like it. They said it sounded like a nu metal band. They said it sounds like a name for a nu metal band, and we were like, "Well, what are we going to do with the $3,000 of merch?"
Right? Yeah.
Right. So we basically told them to fuck off.
No, dude. Because I honestly didn't know what solipsis meant, and I didn't even research it. But then I started reading stuff, and I remember reading about solipsism because I'm kind of into philosophy and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's what those guys are doing, And I think it's a great name, man.
I thought so too. And honestly, like there have been other bands out there that have taken the name, and then they realized that there's already a band with 5 or 6 albums out,
right?
And so we had to email one of them because at the time we had an issue. All their shows were being listed under our band. So people are like, oh, you're playing in California? They're from California. I'm like, no, dude, we're in Cleveland. Like, we're not playing in California. So it's happened a couple times, and then there's been other bands that have used the name for their album name, which also gets confusing because people look us up and they're like, oh, yeah, I found this band. It's like, this is not what I expected. I'm like, that's because it's not the same band.
Yeah. So you guys are still doing Solipsist, or no?
No, we never really officially quit.
Okay.
So the door is open. I'll just say that.
Okay.
But as long as people keep having kids, it's going to be on the back burner.
Right.
And, nobody's going to fault anybody for that. So,
sure.
They're toward the end. We never had a lot of lineup changes in the band. We were really good, and compared to most.
Yeah. Besides the bass player,
we had Murph, and then Dave, and then a few years after that, our guitar player Zach. He was running a pretty successful business at the time. It just had a couple kids and didn't have the time for it. So he ended up bowing out very gracefully, and teaching this young fucking kid from Green, Ohio, Mark, all the riffs. He's a killer guitar player, and so he joined the band when he was 19. We were 25.
Yeah.
So he's like a little kid,
right.
And so he joined the band. He was in the band ever since. We never had any more lineup changes until Steve left. Because Steve grew up, had a baby, got married,
life and stuff.
Life and stuff. Got a sick union job as an electrician, and still doing that today. And a couple beautiful babies, and a beautiful wife, and a beautiful home. So we always talk about it. We still get together and hang out all the time. I mean, we're all really friendly still. We all hang out all the time. In fact, we all got together this past Saturday and got fucking shit-faced together, which was great. And, You know, we always talk about the old times, like it was yesterday. But hey, man, you know, life moves on. Like, I'm the only one that's still doing it. I'll just say that. I'm the only one out of everybody that's still doing music.
So Dave's not even doing drawing.
Oh, he's got his V drum kit in his house, and he likes to jam on it and stuff. But it's not a priority.
Yeah,
you know, he's got a great job. He's got a lot of employees under him that are important.
Oh, is that right?
And so you know, when you have all that, and you got a mortgage, and you got car payments and stuff, like the band stuff isn't as important anymore.
Right.
Just like anything else, you know.
Yeah, but I think it really still is important to you know, express yourself in a certain way. You know what I mean? You know, and I think a lot of, you know, but, you know, I guess, you know, I've never had kids or anything. So I'm sure these guys that are like having families and kids, they're expressing themselves to their children.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's their vent. So their, you know what I mean?
Here's a quick trivia.
Yeah.
Steve's boy, William, knows every Opeth song on every album in order.
Wow.
And he can recite them to you. And I'm pretty sure he knows all the Metallica too.
Wow.
So, you know, hey, if you got to quit the band because you want to make more little metalheads, fucking go for it. Because the world's going to need them. I'm telling you right now, we're going to need them.
That's a great, that's actually really fucking cool. Actually, perspective on that. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So let's go like into recording and sound. Like, how'd you get into recording?
Wow. Well, I started when I was a kid, you know.
Because you have a great ear.
Yeah, I like to think so. When I was a kid, recording my own band in my basement and stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it started. And then I didn't do a lot with it for a long time after that. You know, too busy, wrapped up in my own life. But when I was, I don't know how old I was. This had to be like 2007, maybe 2006, 2007. I met this gal who was talent buyer at Peabody's. Mm-hmm. And
are we going to say her name? Or?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't, just out of respect for her.
Okay.
So met this gal who was talent buyer at Peabody's, and her and I started dating. And I was working a really weird, like, scammy job. That like all the red flags are going off while I'm working this job, but I needed money. I didn't have a job. And she's like, "Hey, we need a door guy at the club." And I was, you know, you're trustworthy. Like, you're not going to steal money. I was like,
right.
Why would I do that? Pay me my wage. I won't steal money from you.
Right.
So I ended up doing the door at Peabody's for a little while. And this was like only for like a couple weeks.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I don't remember
very
you.
Short. Yeah. And in that couple weeks, I met Lemmy. So,
nice.
It worked out for me, right? So I met Lemmy, and then one day I was
Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead.
The only Lemmy, it's the only Lemmy there is. So one day I was working the door, and Derek, one of the owners, comes running by, and he's like pulling his hair out of his head, and he's like, "I need a fucking sound guy. I need a sound guy." I said, "I could do sound." He said, "Okay, well, go over there and do it."
Well,
I said, okay.
But did you do it before?
I mean, kinda, yeah. Like at garage shows and stuff. But I understood the fundamentals, and that's all that really mattered, right? I knew how to work a console, because I'd done that before.
Right.
I knew how to plug a mic in, and I knew how to mic something. I knew where the mics on a drum set go.
Right.
I know that if the amp has red on it, that I need to turn it down. And that's where I started. And I don't remember what show it was. I really don't remember. But they later that night, you know, Derek came in and he looked at me and goes, "It sounds great. Yeah. It's better than our guy.
Yeah.
You're hired." So because it's easier to find a door guy than a sound guy. So I got hired, and I worked there for about 5 years. I started off just doing Pirates Cove shows, and then by the time I left, I was pretty much the head sound guy there.
I want to say, like, because we played the main stage once, and you know, I had my guitar there, and you came up and you're like, "Is that how you want your guitar to sound?" And I'm like, "Hey, well, whatever you do, whatever you did." You know? So you took the high end down a little bit. You did whatever you had to do.
Yeah, I probably rolled off some of that nasty stuff. So yeah, I worked there for a long time. Actually, this guy Kevin, who's, you know, he's went on to work for a lot of really big, great bands. Like he worked for Slayer for years. He taught me a lot of what I know. And I always try to hold myself to a really high standard, especially with sound and audio and stuff, because I've been in the band that gets literally butt fucked by the sound guy.
Yeah.
Because he's not in a good mood or he's having a bad day, and then you end up getting totally fucked over. And I just like, you know what? Like, the way you carry yourself every day is going to be way more important than your mix.
Right.
But your mix is also really important, right? So I ended up doing that for a long time. I mixed bands who were like my favorite bands in the world.
Yeah.
I got to meet people who I never thought I'd get to meet, whether they be cool or not.
Yeah.
Some of the people that I thought were the least cool ended up being the coolest, and some of the people that I thought were the coolest people in the world ended up being total jerks.
Right.
So, really great gig. Learned a lot about the business, and most importantly, I learned what not to do on stage. And
what would that be?
Well, I mean, I could make a long list of things not to do on stage. But you watch bad bands play all the time. And you're like, okay, mental note, don't do whatever he's doing. Right. And so you go on and on, watching these bands after band after band after band, and getting probably underpaid to do basically two people's job.
Sure.
Getting paid half of what I should for one person. So
absolutely.
So, the club didn't have any money.
That's why you used to have to whatever the sound man's, this is Billy's thing. Mm-hmm. Whatever the sound man's drug is, if he likes Coke, if he likes Quaaludes, fucking whatever the fuck, give him that.
Pills,
and then he'll want to work with you,
Remember Jim Horn? Remember Jim Horn back in the day at Peabody's?
I don't know,
So he was there for a long time, and he was there actually right before I got hired in. He was there. He liked pain pills or something. I don't remember. I mean, I don't care if he hears it. Fuck that guy. So like if you went in there with a couple like Vicodins, it'd make you sound like fucking Def Leppard. Like you would sound great, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how it was. But my drug of choice was alcohol. That was my my drug of choice was Budweiser and like maybe a touch of cocaine. And that was like, that's a long time ago. So I'm okay with talking about it now. But anyway, So that sweet gal that I met, that was the talent there.
Yeah.
I ended up marrying her. And
you did?
Yep. Ended up marrying her for we had 6 or 7 pretty good years.
I know you were together with her, but yeah.
We had 6 or 7 pretty good years, and then
no kids or nothing.
No kids, and then it was pretty good, and then it wasn't.
Right.
So we went our separate ways, and it's been a while now. But honestly, with everything that being said, and she had a pretty good hand in all of this. Yeah. And being supportive and pushing this along, because the only reason I'm doing what I do now is because I was at Peabody's. Right. And I learned the ways of the business. You learn all the ugly parts, right, which are more important than the pretty parts. Right. You learn all the things not to do in your band, how not to handle yourself, how not to deal with adversity. And you go from there, and then what was I doing? I'm doing fucking Guerrilla Productions Battle of the Bands, and if you're from Cleveland, you know who Guerrilla is. So
that's what I was going to ask, was when you came on, obviously it was Dan Call that was running Peabody's at the time. No,
it was Chris Zitterbart and Derek Sutcliffe.
Okay,
they had just bought it.
Okay, from Dan.
Yes, when I started there, literally that year.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so how was, because I've been trying to get Chris on here. He said he'd do it, but I don't know.
I love Chris. I love Chris. Me and him, we're still friends today.
Yeah,
He employed me for a long time.
Yeah,
so I'm thankful. I'm always grateful.
He's a great guy. Dude, he's a great guy.
He's a good dude. Yeah. And I think his heart's in the right place. Yeah. Which is probably the most important thing. But, yeah, I did a lot of shows for Dan. Playing in a band, right? Dan, and I got screwed over a bunch of times by Dan.
Well, Dan is a business guy.
Sure,
he doesn't really care about the music. He's a
great guy to have a beer with.
Right,
great guy to have a beer with.
Right.
Don't go play a show for him.
Yeah,
he's not doing shows anymore, but so I don't feel, I'm not afraid to say.
I was going to say,
how mad you going to be, Dan?
I remember having a discussion with him, and I was like, man, I don't know, just this whole ticket selling thing and selling tickets, and I was like, it's ridiculous,
Well, it started here,
Yeah, is that really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, I don't know, he was like, well, it's a business. He laid it down, it's whatever. True. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I couldn't argue with him, I mean, but I think we realized, you're doing these things like early on. You're selling tickets, and then you jockey for position on who's going to play first or last or whatever. You get to pick your position. We realized, we're like, well, if we don't sell any tickets, we'll play first, and everyone's there. Mm-hmm. Everyone's there.
How to game the system.
So then we're just like, fuck it. We'll sign up, do this Battle of the Bands thing, sign up, not sell any tickets. Everyone's there. It's a packed house. And then by the time like the last band plays, there's nobody there.
Yep, just the people that were there to see them.
Right.
It's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? Just crazy.
It was really strange.
It's like somebody said to me once, it's like capitalism. I said, no. It's crony capitalism.
Yeah.
Because I know from experience, okay, mind you, I married the talent buyer.
Right.
Okay? So when my band was playing shows at Peabody's, like we didn't sell tickets.
Right.
Like we got the direct support slot.
Sure.
And part of it was because we were a good band. And that's not to be understated.
Sure.
A lot of people don't realize that. Like,
I agree.
Even in the ticket selling days, when bands were basically forced to sell tickets to play shows, if you had a killer band that drew, they wouldn't expect you to sell anything.
Right.
But most people that shit talk all of that were in bad bands.
Right.
And so they didn't get that opportunity.
Well, yeah. This gave me a little solace is when they called me and they're like, hey, you want to play this Mushroomhead show? And I was like, well, what are we going to do? Like the Pirates Cove? How many tickets do we got to sell? Tickets. Whatever. They're like, no, you're going to play the main stage. It's going to be you, then somebody else, then Mushroomhead. I was like, all right, well, how many tickets do we got to sell? And they're like, no, you don't have to sell any tickets. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know what you're telling me right now.
That's funny. Yeah, isn't it amazing? It's like, wow, we made it.
Right, yeah. That was the thing. Oh, wow, we did it. All right, cool.
We made the Cleveland main stage at Peabody's. Holy shit.
Right. I think you were running sound for that, really.
I probably was.
Yeah, but
a lot of years there. That was a great time of my life.
Yeah.
I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
No, it's awesome, dude. So all right, so you were doing sound there, but all right, we haven't really went into like your whole recording, dude. That's how I think a lot of people know you. I mean, well, obviously everyone knows Solipsis, whatever. If you're in Cleveland, whatever,
Probably not as many people as you.
Yeah, but you definitely have this. I think that's front.
Yeah.
In the front.
So I'll tell you the story.
Yeah.
So doing sound at Peabody's full time, working 5-6 nights a week. It had gotten to the point there where there were a lot of hip hop shows.
Yeah.
And the ratio of hip hop show to metal show or rock show or anything else was getting out of my comfort zone, mainly because the hip hop shows were long hours. You didn't get paid more.
Right.
You'd have 25 or 30 artists that you're dealing with. I've been assaulted multiple times.
Really?
There were gangs throwing bar stools. There were riots.
Shit.
There were shots fired. I got to the point where I didn't want to do it anymore.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, and I didn't want to do it. In the meantime, like on my sort of my days off or whatever, I started recording bands, and I was doing it in our practice space. Guys in the band didn't care; nobody's there.
What were you using? What was
I had a computer. I bought at the time I bought like a little Allen and Heath console.
Okay.
Like a 16 channel or something, and I had some shitty mics, Guitar Center mics, and
not even 50s. Not even.
I had like 57s and stuff.
Yeah,
but I had like CAD drum mics and
sure.
And I didn't have any like good large diaphragm condensers. They were all kind of junky. And I did that for a while, just recording bands, like literally bands that were practicing in the same building would come down, they'd bust something out, we'd mix it down real quick and send them away.
Right.
They'd give me $200, call it a day.
Right.
So I started doing that more and more often. And I'm at the point where like I'm getting the schedule for the club and I'm like, hey, I don't want to work this show. And I don't want to work this show. I don't want to work this show. Like, I'll work Immolation.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll work the
Who's
dying...
playing
soon? Yes.
With Axioma.
I'll work the Dying Fetus show. Or I'll work the Overkill show, which they played the other night. So it's like, you know...
Dude, which I'm sad I missed. I just saw the pictures. I'm really sad I missed it because Overkill kills it, dude.
Yes, they are the hardest working band in thrash, easily. So so they, you know, I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm trading one for the other. Like I would take less money to do a studio gig because I didn't enjoy doing live sound anymore. And I got to the point where I'd become kind of jaded. Doing live sound as a musician can be very detrimental to your music. You're overloaded and oversaturated with music all the time. So I just got to the point where I was sick of it.
Well, you recently did something with Ventana.
Yeah, and I'll still do those gigs.
Okay.
Because I love those guys.
Yeah,
you know? I had done a couple tours with them years ago. Okay. I was just trying to get myself out there. I did a few tours, doing sound, like van tours and stuff. And after those tours, I realized, I was like, the only time I ever want to tour anymore is if I'm on stage. Right. I don't want to be an employee anymore. Right. So I ended up doing live sound for a long time, got kind of sick of it, and then one day basically told to fuck off. I got asked to come in early, and then I got asked to stay till 4 in the morning, and I walked in the office and said, you got to give me another $100. And they were like, go fuck yourself, basically. So I said, okay. Well, okay, go fuck me. Well, how about fuck you? Right. So I left, and I got asked to come back, but I had made my decision. I was like, I'm not going to do live sound anymore. I don't want a house gig. Right. I'm going to take the big leap here, and I'm going to try to make a living recording bands, which was not easy. And my ex-wife, you know, bless her heart, for dealing with that fucking shit. Right. Looking back on it, it was probably a little more difficult than I was willing to admit. Yeah. And in the meantime, we're in the middle of a recession. This is 2000. This is 2000. Yeah, I mean, well, this is like 2012 is when I made the big plunge, but things were not going that well. Yeah. Financially, things were expensive. We didn't have a lot of money. You know, she was working 2 jobs. Yeah. I was trying to make ends meet doing the studio, and I worked hard. Like I wasn't just sitting around with my dick in my hand all day. Right. I was trying to make this work. And it worked out pretty good, honestly. Yeah. Like all things considered. Recorded a bunch of local bands. Had the studio at Rock and Roll City. Yeah. Got kicked out of Rock and Roll City.
Wait, can you tell that story?
Sure. Why the fuck not?
Yeah, because I'm curious because I know Mark, you know, and
I know Mark too. So things, you know, tumultuous times.
Yeah, because you don't seem like a bad guy.
No, we were just jerks. We were at. I'd have to say solipsis is probably the reason we got kicked out, but we were in that room. We had taken the room. It's like a 110 and 111 right at the end of the hall, right by the bathrooms. Yeah. And recording some bands in there. Everything was going pretty good. Really nasty flood happened, and the drain tile, it hit a cracked drain tile for the sewer, right outside the building, and our room got flooded with sewer. Water, which is shit and piss. Right. So we had to empty our room out, and we were like, hey, Mark, like, we need new carpet. You got to replace the carpet and probably like bleach everything, you know? And he's like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And then
when I have Mark on, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, ask him. Well, he's probably not going to want to talk about it. So he ended up like, basically they brought in some fans and they just like dried the carpet, and he was like, okay, that's good. And I was like, I called him on the phone one day and I was like, hey, Mark, like my room smells like fucking piss and shit. And he's like, you know what? You got fucking 24 hours to get your fucking shit out of my room. No way. Get your fucking ass out of my fucking room.
That's actually a pretty good mark.
It is. So he's like, hey, get the fuck out. And I'm like, all right. So we packed our shit up and we left. And honestly, it probably was more our fault because like there were months where we just didn't pay rent. Like we would wait till the 15th to pay the rent, you know, and it's like trying to wrangle everybody up. Nobody had any money at the time. We were all broke.
And he probably felt like he didn't have to do anything because...
Because like, well, you guys aren't paying me. Why am I going to go through the work to fucking fix it, right? So I think everything's cool there. I've talked to Mark about it years and years later. You know, like 7, 8 years ago, we talked about this, and I think we're cool. So we could give each other a big hug, and you know, he had some unfortunate things happen to him, and I think I think that brings everything into the spotlight again in your life. You start to think about all these things, and you got to make things right before you die.
Sure.
So yeah, that was kind of how that went, and then I just started recording bands, man, and just kept grinding.
Who was the first, like, okay, so who was the first band that maybe you recorded that maybe you made money off of?
Money?
No, yeah, I mean, you really never,
way, I guess, but
but you do charge, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not free. I mean, I recorded like the Purse Snatcher stuff. That was cool. That was at Rock and Roll City, though,
which sounds amazing.
Yeah, I still think so.
Yeah,
and it's nice. I still keep in contact with those guys. But
Cougar was on here.
Cougar's still a good friend of mine. Yeah, at least I consider him a good friend.
I grew up with Rob Craig, drummer.
Yes, Rob's awesome.
Yeah,
I still follow him on the Instagram. But yeah, I mean, great dudes. Did some stuff for those guys, and then like as we moved on, you know, when we moved out of Rock and Roll City, we moved into like next door to Drew's place over on 98th, like Madison. That little spot that they had behind Cleveland Lumber over there. Okay. We were there for a little while, and that's actually where Solipsist wrote Extinction Protocol. We wrote that EP there. We were only there for a couple of months, and then I was driving down Madison Avenue one day, and I got stopped at a light at Lincoln and Madison, and I looked to my left, and there was a building there, and it had a big for rent sign in it. And I called the guy on the phone. I called the number on the door. Yeah. I was like, "What do you want for it?" He said, $380 a month. And I'm like, that's nothing. That's what I was paying for a room at Rock and Roll City, right? Of course, it's plus utilities. Nobody thought about that until you signed the lease, right?
Right.
But so we ended up moving in there. Had a killer spot. It was basically a kitchen, like the whole room. It was a 700 square foot building, very small. Recorded a lot of albums in that room.
Really?
A bunch.
So you said it was a kitchen. So it was like, so there was no like, was it like tinny? Or was it like
no? It was carpeted.
Okay,
and it was carpeted, but it was like it basically looked like a studio apartment.
Okay.
And I cut a big ass hole in a wall to put a window in it, and I went and bought a couple $100 piece of glass,
right,
and stuck it in there, and then I recorded bands there for a long time.
What was the name of that?
That was Brainchild Studios.
Yeah.
And I did that for quite a few years. It was a cool spot. And I did have a spot like before that, but it was such a small amount of time. It wasn't really that important.
How'd you come up with Brainchild?
I don't know. It just came in my head.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I was like, I need a name for a studio, and I Googled it, and it wasn't there, so I picked it.
Okay, so you were doing that for a little while, and then so, I mean, because, dude, I don't know. I know you as, well, obviously a singer of Solipsis, and it's hard to say after you had a couple whiskeys. But, but I know you as this, like, sound, dude, everything you record sounds great.
Oh, thanks.
Like, it sounds really good. So, and to hear you say it was Purse Snatcher was the first thing?
Probably one of the first.
That's amazing to me because, I mean, that sounds amazing, you know?
Yeah, and it was pretty low budget, man. It was like I had some kind of crappy mixing software.
Yeah.
I had a decent little preamp interface thing, and with the converters in it, and I had a MacBook. So I did
Pro Tools.
I don't remember what was I using back then. I don't even remember, honestly. Sonar, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford Pro Tools, man.
Right.
That's like big time money.
Well, that's why I use Reaper, you know?
Right? I mean, and more power to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I recorded a lot of bands. Probably a bunch at Rock and Roll City. And then And I would go in there like the middle of the night when there was nobody there.
Yeah.
Because it was so loud in that building all the time. So many bands practicing in the hall. So I'd go in there middle of the night and mix stuff. I managed to get my hands on a pair of KRK V8 Series 2s. Brand new for about $1,600.
Tell people what that is.
Those are speakers.
Okay.
Studio monitors. Right. And I was like, I got good monitors and I got a decent room. I should be able to do this.
Right.
And I did. I did a lot of records. Recorded all the Solipsist records. And a lot of local bands. Nothing really out of town.
Yeah.
Until, I'd kind of moved on from all that. I had a very rudimentary, low budget setup. And I still managed to make records sound pretty good. So I said to myself, hey man, if I could get my hands on some really high end shit, or go work in a real high end studio, I could probably make some great sounding records.
Sure.
Which is kind of where I'm at now.
Where are you at now?
So I've got a studio. It's in Avon, Ohio.
Okay.
Which is ironic and weird because
that's
my
where your
first fucking band I was ever in.
Right.
Practiced about a half a mile from there.
Yeah.
So I'm all the way back full circle.
Yeah.
Kind of. So this guy Sean that I knew, he was in a band called Cellbound.
Okay.
He played guitar. Nice guy. I met him through this guy Dave, who was the other guitar player for Cellbound. Mm-hmm. Who I'm all friends with these guys till today, right?
Yeah.
So Sean was working on a solo album, and he's had a band called Vanek. He had Ed Stevens on bass.
Okay.
And he had the Steve.
We talked about Ed Stevens.
Yeah. Ed's the best musician in Cleveland.
No doubt.
So he had Ed and this guy Steve on drums, and who Steve was in a band, Eternal Legacy, with Sean and his brother Jay.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, I'm doing this album. I'd really like you to record it. And I said, okay, well, come on down. And he's like, no, I want to do it in my space. And I said, okay. So I packed up all my shit, and
I've done that, and it's rough. I don't have as much as you.
Right.
So I know how that is.
Well, I just had like a PreSonus Studio Live console, which was like not pro gear at all. Like it's Guitar Center fucking shit. It's it's the stuff that you can afford when you're a kid. And so I had the board, I had my computer, I had a couple outboard preamps and a little bit of dynamics and stuff. I took it all down there, recorded them live in the room, and then we ended up taking it back to my spot to do extra guitars and vocals.
Yeah.
When we were wrapping the record up, Sean asked me, he said, hey, the building that we're in, they had like a big studio. It was a big space, and I'm like, he's like, hey, my dad said that that it's okay because their dad owns the building.
Right.
He says, it's okay if we take the space behind here and we're going to build another studio. Would you like to rent the front studio that we already have? We'll work out a deal, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So I said, yeah, let's look into it. So I went out there, cut a deal with their dad, signed a lease. The next day, my landlord in Lakewood says, I'm selling the building. You have 30 days to get out.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about synchronicity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy how that ended up happening.
Yeah.
But I ended up moving out to Avon, took all my shit, spent a month gutting the fucking whole thing, pulled all the carpet out, ground everything down to concrete, painted the floors, painted everything again, treated everything, spent a fuck ton of money on it out of my pocket, like literally drained my savings.
Yeah.
Putting that studio together. I even took my piece of glass.
Yeah.
Like I took my piece of glass, my control room glass. I'm like, I'm not leaving it here, right? Because my old studio is a pizza place now. So I ended up moving in there, and I've been there for about 6 years now.
Wow.
And in the meantime, like a lot of things have happened. It's been constantly moving, which is good because I felt like before, like when you're working by yourself and just by yourself, you sort of like you can hit walls, and it's really hard to jump over those walls when you don't have anybody there with you.
Right.
Being independent, completely independent, is not very easy, and you have to be self-motivated, which is not easy either. So anyway, Sean and I and his brother Jason ended up kind of going in together. Not really an official business deal in that sense. More of like, hey, we're all going to do our shit here.
Right.
So, I get the whole front room and the control room there. And then as time went on, other guys have other things going on in different bands and stuff. I'm recording those bands. And then before I know it, I'm the only one really doing a whole lot of recording in there.
Right.
Those guys will still mix their own projects in the studio. And then we managed to get so there's a guy named Eric Rutan. If you're a fan of Cannibal Corpse, you know who he is. He's the new guitar player in Cannibal Corpse.
Okay.
He had a band called Hate Eternal. He still does.
Yeah.
Has a studio in Florida called Mana Studios.
So my buddy John is gonna love this whole thing.
Okay, so my buddy Tim is our Sweetwater guy.
Yeah.
Right? And we kind of became friends with him. He would come out to the studio, help us out with like new gear or whatever issues we had. Really nice guy. We were calling him one day, inquiring about an API console. We wanted to get an API.
What do you mean? What is API
is a company. They make preamps, recording consoles, and all kinds of outboard gear. So we really wanted to get one. They were about $12,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'd expense it. You charge it and pay it back, whatever.
Sure.
But we get Tim on the phone, and actually Sean had Tim on the phone, and Tim's like, "Why would you buy this API console when I have this console sitting in my storage unit right now here in Fort Wayne?" We're like, "What console are you talking about?" He's like, yeah, I got the AMEC 50. It's a Mozart 56 from Eric Rutan from his studio in Florida. We're like, what? He's like, yeah,
the death metal board.
Yeah. Like a bunch of fucking Cannibal Corpse obituary records have been mixed on it. No big deal, right? So this was a Thursday.
Yeah.
Sunday, we were in Fort Wayne picking it up.
That's awesome.
And we brought it back, hooked it all up. It weighs a ton, literally.
Sure.
Just the board alone is like 1,400 pounds, and then everything else is another 600 pounds. It's a ton of shit.
That is literally a ton. Yeah. Yeah.
So we got this big ass console. It's got all kinds of problems, and it's a maintenance beast. And it's $1,000 a year at least to maintain. And and you got to pay somebody.
Clean out all the pots and everything.
Not only that, you're replacing caps, like capacitors, crazy.
Oh yeah.
They dry up, and it runs really hot.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting that, and it's been nice, I gotta say. I'm still doing Pro Tools mixes and stuff, just like right out of the box. But it's nice having a really nice setup with really nice gear.
Right.
Literally world-class stuff.
It's awesome.
And so it makes a big difference.
It would be awesome. Yeah, I would love to do, I'm envious.
Come record a song, Come record a song. Just do one track, done in a day.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing about, and actually, this is actually something I think has been lost in the digital recording world.
Yeah.
The ability to do something in one day, okay? There's a certain spontaneity and like sort of an energy that you get.
Yeah.
When you record something that day and it gets done, it's done.
That's right.
There's no going back. There's no redo.
No,
undo.
that's it. You just move forward.
Fuck it.
No,
Control Z. You can't Control Z a fucking turn on a knob. Okay? You can try, but you're never going to quite undo that, right? For instance, we had a band at the studio back in October called Obscene. They're from Indianapolis.
Okay.
They booked a whole week. We did the whole record in 6 days, front to back.
Yeah.
No compromises. No drum replacement. No quantization.
No, yeah.
It's a fucking album of a band, and it sounds like a band. And so doing it that way, 6 days, recorded and mixed, out the door, sort of a lost art. It's kind of been lost in the convenience era.
I mean, so have you... So when you're recording this stuff, I mean, do you use like triggers and stuff like that, or do you? Yeah, it depends on what's going on.
Like I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I'm not like one of these elitist anti-trigger people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a place for everything. I'm in a death metal band that has triggers.
Well, I think I think you have to. I think you have to use it in some music, just because to cut through.
Yeah. It's simply not loud enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my philosophy is do what's best for the song.
Right.
And if what's best for the song is best for the album, then do what's best for the album.
Yeah.
So, I mean, nowadays, maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't as easy, or 15 years ago, not as easy. But nowadays, we can do these things with really making it very hard to notice.
Yeah.
If I can have a guitar processor, like a Kemper or Axe FX, and I can plug it in and record on it, and maybe I have to do some stuff. Maybe I have to do some post-processing. Maybe there's a notch in EQ or something, or some other things, or some compression I need to do. If I can't tell the difference between that and an amp in a room,
right,
then how are you?
Right.
So my philosophy is you do what's best for the song or the record,
right,
and you forget everything else. Don't want to listen to the noise. None of that shit matters. If a guy doesn't like triggers and you use triggers, and he can tell you're using triggers, he's not going to like your record.
Yeah.
But at that point, what really does his opinion matter?
Right.
Because you're not really thinking about that.
Yeah. No, and, just like recording certain things, I've found just playing around, doing what we've talked, doesn't matter what anyone does, or whatever anyone thinks of you or whatever. I just kind of make music and do whatever. But, I got this little more fucking amp modeler thing, whatever.
Great.
Dude, I got a triple rectifier, 412 Mesa cab downstairs, whatever. I'd rather use this little more thing. Dude, I can't tell the difference.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's back in the day, it's like these modeled sounds, it still wasn't as good as the real thing.
Like
but
the Line 6 and all that.
Yeah, right. But now, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's indistinguishable.
Well, that, and it's like you're not really thinking about the creative part of it all. You know, a lot of people that really, they kind of fret on this stuff about guitar and triggers and tones and all this shit. And like, have you forgotten the whole creative part about this is to write a song that's cool. Right. And okay, so if I got to fucking spend an hour setting up my guitar rig, the idea is gone. I agree. I agree. Okay, so I have very few days off these days. Yeah. But when I do, I like to try to write a song. Yeah. It's either that or I play video games all day. It's one of the two. Or I'm running errands or whatever, doing business stuff. But if I'm like, hey, I got a half a day, I got 4 hours. I'm gonna write a song today. Right. I'm not gonna spend an hour miking up an amp. Yeah. I don't have the time. It's simply not that easy for me.
When so you can just hit a button and it sounds exactly. Sounds exactly the same.
I can plug into my Apollo and I have a Jubilee. I don't need anything else than a Jubilee. So if I want to write a song, I sit down, I turn on the rig, I hit load, I select my template that I've made, my template with my drum program that I can program some drums and I can write a riff. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. I don't need an amp. I don't need fancy fucking shit. Well, it is kind of fancy in itself, but this is the process that I use for like everything. So I'm not really that worried about it.
All right. So we had to pee.
Yes.
And do other things. Hey, we got into some different discussions. That's fine. Had a little bit more whiskey. And but we were talking about but I wanted to say that the analog, like when, we were talking about the digital, how it sounds like really good, recording and stuff. Sure. But when you're in the room, I mean, to really hear that like analog tube amp with, acoustic drums and how everything resonates with each other, you know what I mean?
Dude, there is a spiritual experience that you have when you have a guitar tuned to E. Yeah. And you plug into a Marshall full stack. Yeah. And you turn it way the fuck up with no pedals or no bullshit. Right. And you just play an E chord. Yeah. And it vibrates your soul a little bit. Like there is something special about that. And you can't replicate that. You really can't. You can come close.
I mean,
but you can't. you know.
When you're in the room, I mean, but on a recording though, do you think it's passable? I mean,
it's a different thing.
So, but
recording is like, it depends. I guess it depends on how you look at it, and like what the philosophy is for that recording.
Okay.
You know, different people do things different ways. Like, one of the hardest things to do, I think, sort of the achievement that you could get as a recording engineer is capturing the sound of a Marshall full stack cranked in a room, and not compromising anything.
Right.
That's the hardest thing to do, because especially with the way things have gone, modern style, like everybody's listening to music in earbuds or in headphones, and way less people are listening to music in speakers, like where we're used to listening to music in speakers in a space with a room, and it's gotten harder and harder to capture like that, like the ferocity and urgency of the real thing in a room with all the sound waves bellowing through the room back and forth and bouncing through your body.
Real sound waves, not just digital.
It's a totally different thing.
It is.
And I think sort of the philosophy of recording kind of plays into that, because you're trying to recreate that.
Right.
It's not that.
Right.
So all it all a record ever is a imitation of what the sound is.
That's actually profound.
It's true. I mean, that's what recording is.
It really
is.
What you're
doing. You're taking air movement.
Yeah.
This movement of air in a room.
Right.
Turning it into an electrical signal, sending it down a thing. And then you're turning it into ones and zeros.
Right.
And then you're taking that, and then you're turning it back into vibrations in a room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you may be able to get the idea across, but it's not the same.
It's not.
Yeah. No, and that's
why Motorhead is awesome.
Why?
You know, because I mean, I was too young to be able to go see Motorhead all the time.
Sure, me too.
But I've seen like the videos online, and I can put it together in my head what that would be like being in that room.
Right.
And how fucking loud it would be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same reason I respect bands like Tool a lot. Like, I'm not a fan of all their music.
Right.
But when I listen to their records, it sounds closer to what a real band should sound like than a lot of bands that were of that stature. Right. Like big commercial rock bands, you know, like pretty much them and like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, basically.
Well, yeah. So, okay. Yeah. I have so much I want to say. So when you're recording a band, like I've found, I don't know, just, playing around with music, a little bit I do, whatever. But like, it just seems like if you have a band, like you're recording a band and they know their sound, I mean, you basically just have to put the microphones on and hit record, right? I mean.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, have you experienced
that? There's a little more to it than that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is easy enough that your job is to not fuck it up.
Right.
And I think maybe that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah,
yeah. So there, you know who Midnight is?
No.
Midnight is a heavy metal band from here in Cleveland.
Right.
The band is basically one guy. He goes by the name Athanar.
Right.
But his name's Jamie. So I've been doing some Midnight records for a while. They were on Hell's Headbangers for a long time.
Okay.
And Jamie made some really great albums. And then he did a little switch up. And this album just came out on Friday called Let There Be Witchery. And that's the second record I've done for Midnight.
Okay.
He made the switch to Metal Blade Records on the last one. So this is the second Metal Blade record he's done.
Right.
So that's kind of cool for me because I grew up listening to albums on Metal Blade Records, and I'm like, I get to open one and I see that big ass logo, and I see my name in there, and I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing ever, I'm like starstruck a little bit.
Right.
But basically, like Jamie records everything, right?
Okay.
He plays the drums, he does the bass, then he does the guitars, then he does the leads, rhythms and leads, and then does the vocals, and it's everything him. There's no click tracks. There's no backing tracks. He plays everything on the drums, the song straight through. There are no punches, and there are very few edits. Okay, so like we'll do stuff if we really need to. At the end, like if we're in post and something doesn't sound right, if it's too sloppy, we'll tweak it. But it's pretty much straightforward. And I realized a little while ago that my job is to not fuck it up.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And not to overcharge.
Yeah.
Right. Just because somebody's on a label.
Right.
I can't like raise the price. Right. So I charge the same amount, which is not a lot. These are Cleveland prices.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So,
nice. That's good. That's
and
good,
plus,
man.
just paying out of pocket. It's not like the label's paying for anything. Like just paying out of pocket for everything. So,
and this is, but you get this is currently like, what's the name? I don't think
Midnight?
we said. No,
Midnight?
the name of the studios.
Oh, Mercenary Studios.
Mercenary. I don't think we said that.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So yeah, Mercenary Studios with an I, and it's spelled wrong on purpose.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Mercenary.
Sin.
With C-I-N.
So no, so yeah, I just wanted to say that. So that's what you.
So that's kind of what's been going on now at the studio with all the bands that I've been doing. Like a lot of death metal lately, but some of those records, like the Midnight records, like some of the bands, your job, when it's dialed in, the sound is the sound.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to go change anything.
Right.
All I can do is maybe add some embellishments, help with that stuff to certain things, but.
So I'm not a gear guy, but I'm kind of interested. What gear do you? You know what I mean? Like I'm not one of those gear. Like I know, like people are like, dude, this fucking Fender or whatever, or this fucking amp or whatever. You know what I mean? But like what are you using to record? Like what do you have? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah, sure. We got a couple of rooms there at the studio. We have room A and B, and I think actually it used to be B and A, but we've switched them because the one room kind of took over as the main space.
Okay.
So there's 780 square foot live room.
Okay.
Kind of a long rectangle room. Sounds great in there. I love it. We've done a lot of work in it. And then a small control room on the other side, and it's just like it's an all digital setup with like a Midas console. And
that's the one you got.
It's the Midas. This is a brand new console. Like newer. So we got that, and then we had 32 channels in the one room, which is nice.
Okay, nice.
Record. And then
have you ever used all of them at once?
I've come close.
Really?
Yeah, I've come close.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've probably got to 28 or 29, I think.
Wow.
In the session. And that was because we had a bunch of, we have the cables, and you have a live band in there. Like, put mics everywhere.
That's sweet. Yeah.
And you end up deleting half of them. But whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, and then so the other side is like the A room is like a really nice purpose-built room that we did, and it's actually spearheaded by Jason and Sean Vanek. So they basically built that room out.
Who are they?
They're my partners at the studio.
Oh, okay.
Sean plays guitar in a couple great bands.
Okay.
And so they have a couple bands too that they do. But the room was built out in, I don't know, about 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. And it's a sick room. It's all floating floors, and the rooms are all the walls are open cell. There's no reverb in the room at all.
Right.
It's completely dead. It's weird, actually. If you go,
it's like when you walk. I've walked into rooms like that, and it's like you walk in, and it's like it almost messes with your equilibrium.
It's weird. You get used to it. But so that room is it's all UAD stuff. So we got like 2 UAD interfaces, and then everything comes and goes out of that. And then there's the console. Is that Amec Mozart 56, and we only use like 24 channels on it. Okay. But you can mix down your record on that if you want. Okay. Or you can mix down your record on. We have a Neve satellite mixing setup, which is pretty nice. Summing mixer, basically. So you do most of your mixing in Pro Tools, and then you send it out to a line mixer. Okay. That does all your panning, and that's all the summing. So it's not summed in Pro Tools. So that's pre. No, it's after. Okay. So you would so after you've basically mixed your record down, sorry,
I
touched you. Sorry, when you basically have mixed your record down, at that point you would just send it through that. And so instead of putting all the sound together inside a computer,
right,
with ones and zeros, you'd be putting it together with voltage,
sure,
the real analog world,
right, yeah.
And then we got like the mastering chain for that. So we got a Neve mastering chain,
nice.
Portico.
So that's why it sounds so good.
It sounds very nice, yeah. So when you have some of the outboard stuff, I mean, and with some really nice preamps, very nice pre's, very nice mics, like
what pre's are you using?
Oh man, we got 4 APIs, got some warm audio stuff. That's like the Neve clone stuff that we have, like the WA-73, and then a couple of UA 710s, which is like the tube transformer blend preamps, which are great for overheads and things like that. And like a bunch of other sort of random stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah. So it's nice shit, which is nice.
Again,
I mean,
I'm envious.
I mean, you have to come down. I mean, it's our door is pretty much, our policy is pretty much an open door policy, and we try to, I try to accommodate everybody, and we try to have fun. It's still, even that's the thing that we're doing, is that a lot of studios aren't doing, is that even though we have all the really nice shit,
right,
it still feels a little DIY and a little punk rock.
Cool. Yeah.
Like it's like when you walk in, it isn't a pristine, brand new space.
Right,
it's a building that's been there for a long time,
sure,
and there's only so much you can do with existing construction. So it is what it is, but everybody feels comfy there.
Right.
It's like the live room's basically a giant living room.
Yeah.
We got a PA in there and everything you need. So you could go in there and jam. You could have like the Fake Muslim stuff. You had Murph on.
Yeah.
When they tracked all their stuff at the studio, we did the whole record in 4 hours, front to back.
Nice.
And it was a lot of fun because I get to use the PA that we have, which is a really nice, loud PA.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And it's dialed in. So the whole band is basically, I feel like I'm kind of either at a show or like a really top end band practice.
right.
And it just sounds great.
Yeah.
And I get to mic it up, and basically I get to record the show. And if they fuck a song up, you just do it again.
Right.
I mean, they're a minute long anyway. Right. So you just let them rip. And like a band like that was a lot of fun, actually. That's one of the funner records I've done the last couple of years. But just ripping through a whole record like that, just totally live, very rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, I've done videos of theirs, and seen them live, and they're just intense.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's intense. It's like, honestly, sometimes for me, and I'm a bit of a music nerd. Like I like music a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too much for me, and I like weird shit.
What about those vocals, though, man?
I just, the intensity is great, but it's good at like certain times, for me personally. Now, that being said, I love recording it, and I love being able to like put my edge on that.
Sure. Which I've heard it. It sounds awesome.
Or like making it sound more, just adding like what I would think. Because at the end of the day, what I'm doing is a creative venture.
Right.
There's art in just what I have to do every day, rather than like the band could come in and I could just be like okay to everything and just be a yes man, but that's not very exciting.
Well, you were talking about Murph's band. The singer, like Alicia, like what do you like as an extreme singer? Like what do you?
You just give her an SM58, and here's the thing. Like, if you learned how to record bands on really shitty gear and you never had any good mics, you've learned how to tweak things after to make it sound better. Right. So I recorded on really bad equipment for a long time. Yeah. And so now it's like, well, I know what to do with a band that's playing it live to make it sound like maybe it's a little less live, like a little more polished in your face. When you put it on a record player or you put it on your CD player or whatever, or in your car, it doesn't sound like it's under a blanket or something. Right.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying, though, is her intensity.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I don't know if, as an extreme singer yourself, like, how do you feel about that? Because I think
I think it sounds great. I think it sounds great.
She is intense.
It's fun to record because there's not a lot you have to do.
Yeah.
Everything's built in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At that point.
So you were doing some solo stuff, I guess. We were talking about like in the big thing. Like, what is that?
I have lots of solo stuff.
Yeah.
I have tons of shit sitting around, but I had a band for a while. And I'm still kind of doing it. It's not
From the Hellmouth.
From the Hellmouth. Yeah. I'm not going to close the door on it, but So I got home from tour in like 2017 or 2018, and I was like feeling really good about my guitar playing at the time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of going through some shit, so I wrote a bunch of death metal songs.
Nice.
Like really heavy brutal death metal stuff.
Right.
And so I wrote some tunes, and my buddy Tommy, who runs a couple of record labels, he owns 2 labels, Redefining Darkness Records and Seeing Red Records.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever met Tommy, but good dude. He was just starting his label off at the time, and I had written 5-6 songs, and I sent them over to him. We were chatting about some stuff, and he's like, he listened to him. He's like, hey, these are pretty sweet songs. Like, he's like, you should really put some real drums on them, because I just programmed drum beats on there. I'm like, well, I don't know any drummers that can play this. It's like 280 BPMs, blast beats. Like, nobody can play it. It's extreme. It's so extreme that I don't know anybody that can play it.
Right.
So I'm just going to go with the drums I put on there. Whatever. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to hear this. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
He's like, no. I know a guy. So he hits up this guy, Alan Cassidy. He's in a band called Black Dahlia Murder.
Okay.
So
may have heard of those.
Yeah, you may have heard of him. So he had just kind of joined Black Dahlia and stuff, but he's living in Detroit and just not far away. And he's like, tell you what, I'll put the record out, do 5 songs. I'll pay him. So Tommy paid him like $250 to learn the songs, and he learned them exactly how I programmed them. Maybe added a couple things or whatever, but like it was pretty. I'd say 90% what I programmed.
Right.
And he fucking drove down one day, recorded all the drums, and then I retracked the guitars. I kept some of the vocals that I had from the demos because I thought they were good. Now looking back, I probably should have redone them. But we released that on his label. I think it's like RDR-02 or something.
Okay.
It's maybe the second thing he ever put out on that label, and we just did like 250 CDs.
Sure.
And so at the time when I was fucking around with that, I met this guy Joe, and he was doing a studio session for a guy. They were a band, but it was sort of more like a studio band thing.
Right.
And I let him hear some of it. And he's like, man, that's fucking great. He's like, I can play that. I'm like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
No fucking way. He's like, no, I can do it. So he came back down for another session a few months later, and he's like, I can do it. And I picked up a guitar, and we played a bunch of it. And I was like, hey, we should do a band. I know some people that can play it, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up doing a bunch of shows, like played some sick shows, got to traveled around a little bit doing it and shit. And had a pretty good time. And like Mark who was on Solipsist and a couple other bands I was in. He was in Ringworm too. Mark was for a long time.
Okay.
He was in From the Hellmouth. My dude Nate was in it. Fat Dave played bass. My best friend.
I just noticed.
Yeah.
Can you like move this way?
Oh, sorry. My bad.
No, we're getting too much in the conversation we have to pay attention to the.
I'm just chilling. I'm just chilling out, bro.
No, so go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we did that. We did a bunch of shows, and it was a good time.
Yeah,
but yeah, after that, like, it was hard. I realized something at that moment that it's really hard to like keep a band together when you're the guy that's writing everything.
It's like you're. Well, we've said this before. It's like you're married to multiple people, and it really is a relationship, not sexual. You can have a non-sexual relationship, platonic relationship, but it's like you're married to these people.
Yeah, because you got to spend a lot of time together.
Yeah,
that's part of it. Like nobody. Like there's not. I can only really count on one hand or maybe 2 how many people I'd like to spend on time on a road trip with.
Right.
think about that for a minute. Like,
Right.
what if somebody smells bad?
All the time, man.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, I got to get in the car with this guy for 6 hours today.
Well, you gotta, hey, that's when he can learn like hygiene. You know what I mean? You just let him know, and then he'll learn you can teach him how to wash himself.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's a learning experience.
It is true, though. It's weird as you get older. I mean, I'm damn near 40, and, so, like, it's different as you get older. Things do change.
Yeah.
You like, I don't feel nearly as punk rock as I used to. No. Like, now I there are things that I need that I didn't need 20 years ago. And, like, I'm like fucking going to a show and I'm like, the worst part is when you're in a band and you got to stand at the bar to get a beer.
Right.
You're still doing that at 38, 39. You're like, fuck, this is not working. Where's the promoter?
Right.
I need a 12-pack.
No, but yeah, I mean, as you get older or whatever, what you said was, because like when I was like in my early 20s, man, I had a lot of angst in me. So like I said, I would consider myself more punk rock. Like the lyrics I do, like it's pretty much anti-establishment, whatever, all the time, and just angry, three-chord kind of whatever, Yeah. So, but not so much these days, you know what I mean? And that's what I know how to do. But I'll express myself in different ways. I still like to play music and do whatever. But, I think it's to expect somebody to just maintain that level of angst their whole life.
Yeah, good luck. Right. I mean, you can't be angry all the time.
Right.
I mean, doing the Nunslaughter thing too.
But it's a good vent. You know what I mean?
Here's the one thing I never quite understood.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to understand it. But I play guitar in Nunslaughter, and it's a fucking blast. I love it. Like, I love playing, satanic fucking death metal.
Right.
And a lot of it's in Jim's honor. And,
sure.
Every time we get on stage, try to make that guy proud.
Sure.
And, even Jim, like, was the same way. Like, I don't think quite he understood. He's like, what do you expect me to wear my bullet belt, my spikes, and my leather jacket, like, everywhere I go? Everywhere I go? Like, no, I can't do that because it's just not feasible.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, like, how hard are you gonna try? And then as I get older, I feel more and more that way. I'm like, well, when I was 25, I always had chains on and everything, and now here I am, fucking, you're 40 years old, and you're like, fuck, I'm having a hard time just like putting on the pants in the morning, man. I ain't got time for this shit.
Right, yeah. No, but that being said, I mean, you don't have the same angst or whatever, and obviously, like the studded leather thing is an expression as well. Sure. You know what I mean? You're trying to be outlandish or whatever.
I say it in jest.
Yeah,
I'm joking around, but
I get the meaning. And it's like, I find myself just wearing like black t-shirts and jeans like most of the time. Maybe a sports jacket if I'm trying to get fancy.
I have one. It's got purple sequins on it.
Yeah. Nice. But you wanted to talk about this other podcast, Known as Listening.
Oh yeah, Known as Listening. Yeah. I'll give you a heads up on that. So it's my buddy Dave, my best friend Dave, and his dude Chris and Derek. They have a cool podcast. It's on Spotify and all that stuff, and Apple Music, whatever.
What are they talking about?
I don't know, video games, movies, comic books, all kinds of whatever, pop music.
That's cool. Yeah.
Amy Winehouse. We did a Halo. So I've been on there a couple times. But we did. I was on there. I did the pizza episode. Okay. Because I lived my life, my 20s in a pizza shop, basically. Okay. And then we did another one about Halo because I'm a video game dork. Okay. Doick.
Well, I'll tell you what. I like the video games so much that I don't play them. Yeah. That's how much I like them.
It's like heroin.
right, yeah.
It's like, it's so good, I don't do it.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so you guys talk about Halo. Dude, I've never played Halo, though.
Shit. That's a good game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then, I was a Call of Duty guy.
I like Call of Duty, too.
Yeah.
Dude, if I can murder like 40 people in 5 minutes, I will do it. Like, if you give me a machine gun and tell me in a virtual world that you can murder as many people as you want,
right, I'm
going to do it.
Right, yeah.
And I'm going to do it often. And in fact, it's going to get to the point where when I get home at night, it's just a little bit of weed, killing sprees, kill streaks, fucking airstrikes, white phosphorus. That's a fucking war crime. It's a fucking war crime. And you know what I'm doing?
Right.
I'm fucking doing it every night because it's cathartic. It feels good.
It is cathartic. And I think that's the whole thing about this whole music thing. And I think that's exactly that. Like you said, playing a video game is cathartic. And I think playing music is cathartic.
Yeah, it's a different thing. But
it's all catharsism.
Sure.
For sure. And I think, I think that's what like a lot of people don't understand, is like a lot of people don't have like this cathartic expression. Mm-hmm. Is that a thing? I don't even know. But
I mean, yeah.
And then they resort to antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
Whatever,
I mean, I think it's okay to write music for you.
Yeah.
And if other people like it and they want to go along for the ride, that's cool.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be for the audience or written for the listener. And I don't think that enough musicians think about that.
Yeah.
But some of the best songs I've ever heard that were ever written, in my opinion, were songs that were written from someone singing to themselves.
I think that's
especially the sad ones. Especially the sad ones.
But no, I think
sometimes those are the best songs.
I think that's a great place to end this. It came around full circle. It's cathartic.
It is,
if you will.
Makes you feel good.
All right, dude. Noah. Noah. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, this was a good time. It really was. No, thanks. All right, SUB-CLE. We're out.